Welcome to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Kline, co-founder and CEO, along with my husband and company visionary, Devan Kline.
And together, with our amazing team, we are going to help you push past your limits, not just physically in our gyms, but right here, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually on the Burn Bootcamp podcast.
Together, we will take on challenges and break through barriers to transform into the best possible version of ourselves. We are more than a gym. We are a community. Your community. Let's go, Burn Nation.
Burn Nation, what is up? And welcome back to another podcast. Really exciting one today. This is the 500th episode. Can you believe it? We've been podcasting for a very long time, and we are continuing to get amazing feedback from you, which gives us fuel. It is our oxygen to keep moving forward. And so for the 500th episode, I want you to head over to YouTube, subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel. We'll link it in the show notes here. But also, you could go to Apple Podcasts, but I prefer YouTube if you really want to celebrate 500 with us. Today, Ask Devan Anything is going to take a little turn. Usually, I'll pull from like our grab bag of questions, and I'll go kind of shallow, maybe a little bit kind of mildly deep in 5 or 6 different topics, but the whole podcast is shifting to going really, really deep. We want to take one question, and we want to get you to thoroughly understand it. And this question is amazing. Jody, thank you so much, and Chelsea and Ted, obviously, for creating an amazing Burn Bootcamp community in all of St. Louis. Kirkwood is where Jody comes from. So the question today is the following, all right? And listen to the question very carefully. Is it possible to build muscle and burn fat simultaneously? We've always heard, generically speaking, that no, you want to build muscle, then you want to lose fat. We call it bulking and cutting cycles, okay? But my question is, who wants to spend 6 months out of the year cutting? Who wants to spend 6 months out of the year bulking? Because cutting, we all know, is kind of miserable if you're going to go hardcore at it. And bulking just leaves you feeling lethargic. It leaves you feeling like you have too much food because you do. Now, let me go ahead before I get into this. It's going to be quite scientific today, but I think I'm going to do a pretty good job at breaking it down for you to make it consumable, so it doesn't feel like you're riding in your car, or sitting at work, or cleaning the house listening to the podcast. You're like, Devan, what are you talking about? Okay. First of all, I'm a fitness-specific nutritionist with ACE, American Council on Exercise. I'm currently working on my CNC, Certified Nutrition Coach from NASM. That should be done here pretty quickly. And those are just credentials. I don't, a long time ago, didn't value the credentials, but if I'm going to start talking about nutrition more, I probably just need to have them for efficacy, for authenticity, and just to show you that I have the piece of paper. But I've been studying nutrition for my whole life. Since I was 16, and my coach looked at me, my baseball coach looked at me and said, "Hey, buddy, you have a really great arm, but you're about 155 pounds if you were soaking wet, and D1 pitchers aren't 6'1", 150 pounds. You need to make your fastball go faster. You need to gain weight and mass, get it behind the fastball. Let's lift. Let me show you how to work out." I did so. I gained 25 pounds of muscle through mostly nutrition and hypertrophy training with a high school program called Bigger, Faster, Stronger. And I was able to do so. Since I was 16, I've really been studying nutrition. I went and played with the San Francisco Giants organization, and they took my nutrition up to a whole new level. So I really pride myself on my nutrition knowledge, and I'm just going to back that up with some certifications so that the naysayers and the skeptics who want to debate or talk about this stuff openly, I welcome that, and I definitely respect the certifications, the degrees, and all of the knowledge, time, effort, and energy that goes into getting those. So what I'm going to do first is called the steel man. I'm going to steel man the argument that you definitely cannot build muscle and burn fat simultaneously if you want to optimize. All right, so it kind of looks like this. Here's the story of somebody that would be sitting across from me debating, all right? And I want to make sure that you know that I know the opposite argument of what I'm going to explain to you today. So you have to be in a caloric surplus to build muscle. You have to be in a caloric deficit to burn fat, meaning there's two energy systems in the body, the muscle building energy system, the anabolic system, and the body fat burning system, or the breakdown of tissue, which is a catabolic system. And these two are like opposing energy systems, and you can't metaphorically like build the house and demolish the house simultaneously, okay? So this is the basic argument, okay? And what I'm going to teach today, or suggest, or actually not even give advice outside anyone to Jody who is actually asking. I tend not to give advice. I'll just tell you what I know. I'll tell you how it works. And I'll tell you that generally speaking, if you want to optimize and maximize muscle, then you should have a cutting and a bulking cycle, because you're going to then maximize each one of those energy systems. But the question is not, is it possible to maximize muscle and maximize fat burning simultaneously? The answer to that question is a big fat no. But is it possible to build muscle and burn fat simultaneously without maximizing? Yes. What's the downside to not maximizing? Why wouldn't you want to maximize? Well, I already said it, because when you cut, it's miserable. When you bulk, you're miserable. And who wants to be in the cycle of misery after misery after misery? Wouldn't it be nice if you could just show up every day, slowly but gradually build muscle, stay lean so that you look good and so that you feel good? That is really where I'm going with this, okay? So what I want to do with this question is explain to you metabolic flexibility, okay? Metabolic flexibility is really the name of this podcast, and it's not just metabolic health, okay? Metabolic health is one thing, right? That's good. You want to be healthy metabolically, but prime health, maximized health, is metabolic flexibility, okay? Now, I'm going to explain in detail these two systems, not anabolic and catabolic, but two metabolic systems that when you can teach it and train your body to go back and forth between these two big words that nobody really needs to know, but I'm going to tell you them, is glycolysis is one, and lipolysis is the other. So glycolysis is basically the utilization of carbohydrates, which, by the way, is sugar. Every carbohydrate that you eat is sugar, and you're using this sugar for fuel. A lot of times, glycolysis will be coupled with the nutritional camp of QCICO, which is quality calories in, calories out. A lot of people will just kind of hang their hat on this CICO, calories in, calories out, and just disregard the way that whatever food they're eating. They'll take a calorie for a calorie, meaning like a piece of broccoli, which is a complex carb, in a cupcake, which is a simple carb, and they'll say 100 calories of broccoli is the same as 100 calories of ice cream or of any other simple carb that you can imagine. Well, the fact is that is just not true, because it is not just all about calories. Ladies, you're going to love this one, because you know this more so than anybody else. Your body isn't just working off calories. It's also working off hormones. Hormones need to be considered, and hormones are really affected by quality of calories and then the behavior in which you are eating, okay? So glycolysis is the process in which you take intake calories. Those calories are then, mostly carbohydrates, are then converted into sugar for fuel, all right? Most of you know that. What most of you don't know probably is that lipolysis is the alternate source of fuel. So your body is then storing food as fat and then using that fat through a process in which we take a triglyceride and we break it down. It's called gluconeogenesis. We're going to break that down, and we're going to use that fat for fuel and protein synthesis. And I'm going to explain exactly what this means. So, metabolic flexibility is your body's ability to switch from glycolysis, sugar for rapid energy and rapid fuel, to lipolysis, when you don't have carbohydrate, when you don't have glucose, when all of your glycogen stores are depleted, the body immediately shifts to using fat for fuel. And this is something that I just want you to know. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not telling you, I'm not going to tell you how you should eat. I'm not going to tell you what, because you should not listen to anybody on the internet if they say, hey, here's what you should do because this is what works for people. No. Your nutritional patterns and habits should reflect your unique lifestyle, your unique biochemistry. Everybody has different inherent hormonal balances and DNA, and it's so prescriptive that I'm actually going to tell you that you should not listen to me, because I don't know you listening to this. I'm talking to Jody right now, and Jody's asking the question, so I'll give her some pointed advice. But more so, I'm just going to tell you what I do, and I'm going to tell you why I want to achieve metabolic flexibility as the primary cursor to my health, and more importantly, my biological age. Remember, our philosophy, the DK Burn Bootcamp philosophy, is not about, how fast can we get a six-pack and how good can we look. It's about longevity. There's many, many ways to look good in which you are bypassing these two systems and you're still metabolically unhealthy, but you look good so everybody thinks you're healthy, but are you really? What's your biological age would be my question. And I'm kind of going through that process of diving into my biological age now that technology is here and available. It's called DNA for Life, and I'll talk about that later. That's not for today. Onward. Okay, let me just explain to you this process, how to flip back and forth between glycolysis and lipolysis. Let me start by saying this. When your food goes in your body, okay? When food goes in your body, you're going to use those carbohydrates rapidly for fuel right now, okay? The body does not optimize for how you want to look. Your body optimizes for keyword sustainability. So what's going to happen is you're never going to use even the healthiest meal. You're never going to use it to fuel only what needs to be fueled, and then nothing stores as body fat. That's not how the body works. There's always going to be a little bit of excess. So what happens is you use food as fuel. Okay, what does that mean? A carbohydrate goes into your body. When a carbohydrate goes into your body, it's going to be converted into glucose. Okay, your blood sugar, your insulin is going to spike. Your insulin is like the carrying hormone or the key to your intracellular environment. And what's going to happen is glucose is going to be carried by insulin into the muscle cell. And the cell is going to, through a process that we could talk about later that gets a little bit too nerdy, it's basically just going to shove that glucose in the form of glycogen into your muscle, then into your liver. And once those are stored up and full, because, hey, that muscle cell is only so big, and the insulin can only unlock it and fit so much glycogen into that cell before it has to close the door and say, I'm full, there's no more here. Then it goes to the liver, and then it goes, guess where? To body fat. So the food you eat is nothing more than calories that fuel muscle, top off the liver, and then the excess calories, no matter whether it's chicken or ice cream or whatever, there's excess energy, surplus energy in the body. It's going to store as body fat, okay? Glycogenolysis is the term that is really doing this, okay? It turns the glycogen into the stored tissues for energy, all right? Now, we go to exercise. We have those glycogen stores you've heard that get depleted. All right, and if you have a really hard metabolic conditioning workout, you deplete your glycogen stores. The reserve is body fat. Now, That's what most people think. But let me add a little bit of color and context to this so that you know once that glycogen turns from glucose into glycogen stored in your muscles, all right, then you use it, you tap it out, all right, by maybe, let's say, not eating for a while because your body needs to convert that glycogen for energy. Listen, if you don't eat for a while, let's just say, I don't know, 4 to 6 hours of fasting and not eating, you're teaching your body that I'm not going to give you carbohydrates, and you start to regulate that insulin. Listen, if you're constantly feeding, or if you're listening to the advice that a lot of people give, like, never skip a meal or keep the metabolic fire burning all day long, what you're going to do is chronically stress your body out. There's 3 hormones in the hunger cycle. There's ghrelin, the gremlin, that makes you hangry. That's the I'm hungry signaling hormone. There's leptin, the I'm full hormone, stop feeding me. And then there's a CCK, which is the satiation hormone that lives in your gut. So these are the 3 hormones really responsible for the hormonal cycle. And if you're constantly feeding your body insulin, you are gonna eliminate the brain signal for leptin. You're gonna be hungry all the time, and ghrelin, the gremlin, is just gonna be growling at you all day long, and you're gonna give into it because you can't take it. You're so hungry that you could eat a cow. Your hunger is painful. You can't just sit in this uncomfortable nature. You feel like you're gonna die. It's that norepinephrine that gets released, and you feel like it's like fight or flight, and then you gotta eat because you need to survive. This is just an unhealthy metabolism. That's all we're working with here. So what we need to do is have periods in which we don't eat. Most notably, a lot of you probably do this already if you feel metabolically healthy. You're probably having dinner at like 6 or 7 at night, and you're probably getting up in the morning and eating at like 8 or 9 a.m., and you have 14 hours in which you're not eating. This is great, and this is what I want you to do. And this is what I do mostly. I'll explain a little bit in more depth in a minute exactly what my plan is, not your plan, my plan. But most of us, if you are metabolically healthy, you're in lipolysis, you don't even know it, okay? You're there, and you don't even know it because you're actually intermittent fasting overnight. Rather than those who are chronically obese, they have type 2 diabetes, right, which is largely the same thing. Diabetes and obesity is largely the same thing. We now know that you can reverse type 2 diabetes when we used to think that you couldn't. We now know that you can just through this process that I'm talking about right here, which is this intermittent fasting. So what happens is the glycolysis process that takes your food, converts it ultimately into glycogen so that you can actually go throughout your day having energy available. Once you deplete those glycogen stores, for about 4 to 6 hours, what you're going to start kicking in is that secondary energy system, that lipolysis, that burning fat for fuel. And it starts, guys, at about 4 to 6 hours. But if you can go 12 to 14 hours overnight, you are going to be so much more metabolically healthy, because what you're going to actually start doing is you're going to kick in lipolysis. I'm going to explain what that is. But 12 to even 20 up to 24 hours is really where you start to ramp up the depth and the speed and the body's reliability on this secondary energy system called lipolysis. So if you are constantly eating, you are never, ever, ever going to then reverse engineer that glycolysis process, right? Where I intake food, I can't use it all because my body maximizes for sustainability. We're hunter-gatherers still physiologically. Our DNA has not changed. Our central nervous system hasn't changed. The norepinephrine levels, the fight or flight hormones, they haven't changed. We still think we're going to die if we hadn't eaten in like 8 hours, most of us. And this cycle can literally kill you guys. It can kill humans because we're constantly listening to ghrelin the gremlin. When it comes to the top of the hormonal cycle, all of a sudden it's like, all right, I got to eat. And you just do this over and over and over and over and over. You never allow your body to be metabolically flexible, which really means just reversing the process of food storing as body fat, because that's all body fat is. I hope you know this. All body fat is your food that you didn't use because the body's maximizing for sustainability, because we don't know when our next meal is, physiologically speaking. So we're going to maximize for sustainability. And Then ghrelin comes up, and then you eat again because you're unwilling to be uncomfortable. And then it comes up 2 hours later, and you eat again, and you eat again, and you eat again. And you do what people have been asking you to do for the last 100 years. Keep the metabolic fire burning, never skip a meal. This is insane. This is insane that we have this ideology in America. No wonder why we're obese. Generally speaking, the most obese country in the world, because all we're doing is listening to the advice that the big marketing companies, the government policies are telling us, and we are leaning into that and taking that as the Bible without questioning, without curiosity. So all lipolysis really is, it's a fancy word for saying, I'm just going to reverse engineer that same process. Now my body fat is going to be used as fuel. So let me explain that. Here's how it works scientifically, just so that you know and you can visualize what happens, okay? You've heard the term before, triglyceride, all right? Triglyceride is adipose tissue's molecule. Let's put it that way, all right? Triglyceride has a backbone called glycerol, or glyrosol, depending on how you want to pronounce it, okay? Then it has a bond with 3 triglyceride fatty acids, FAAs, okay? Now, when I get into lipolysis, okay? Lipolysis has an underlying system called gluconeogenesis. Gluconeogenesis, and the process of gluconeogenesis is the breaking of that triglyceride bond, which then glycerol breaks down into glucose. You remember that one? Glucose, sugar. So your fat has sugar. Your fat has sugar. And sugar is what's going to fuel protein synthesis. Okay? It's not dietary protein that builds muscle necessarily, although that's a big factor in it. It's the underlying mechanism of protein synthesis. So this gluconeogenesis process is taking the glycerol backbone, it's breaking it, all right? And it is converting into glucose. There's some receptors, inhibitors, and triggers and all that go in between that process that we'll talk about on a different day. But that glucose now is available for muscle protein synthesis, or MPS, okay? You follow me so far? Okay, so then now I've got my glycogen back. My glucose stores as glycogen, and now I'm going to be able to fuel my muscle, all right? Now, wait, Devan, you said fasting? You said, so like this happens during fasting? Aren't I going to lose a ton of muscle when I fast? We'll talk about that in a moment, but the answer is no. Now, the fatty acids, the 3 fatty acids, they're going to break down into the bloodstream. Albumin is it's a blood protein. It's a blood protein, and it's a carrier. Albumin is a blood protein carrier, or a protein in the blood. And what it does is it carries those fatty acids down to your liver. Okay, it's like the shipping protein down to your liver. Then those fatty acids go through a process called beta oxidation, okay? And beta oxidation essentially is the process that is the prerequisite to ketosis. And you've heard of the keto diet, but you've probably heard of the BS keto diet, where people think they can eat like Impossible burgers and smashed cheeses and processed foods and eat like bacon with nitrates in it and just eat whatever they want as long as it doesn't have carbohydrates. That's for the birds. All right, we're quality calories in, calories out. I've already explained. CICO is a very bad way to look at your nutrition intake. A broccoli calorie is not cut the same as an ice cream calorie. Why is that? Because the glycemic index, even though they're both carbohydrates, the GI glycemic index, you can look it up, is much lower. Okay, in ice, like low. It's in the low category for broccoli, and it's in the high category for those more simple carbohydrates. And really, glycemic index is just, how does this food spike my insulin? So the more high glycemic index food you're going to eat, the more chronically distressed the body's going to be in the pancreas that secretes insulin, and you're going to create insulin resistance. Prerequisite to all inflammation, bad things, cancers, okay, malignant cells. So So the beta oxidation essentially does two things. It provides the underlying mechanism for ATP. We're not going to go there today, but ketones get produced in the liver. One of those ketones, there's two that are made, one of those ketones can cross the blood-brain barrier, and it's going to give you the most clear mental picture you've had in a very long time. If you've ever heard anybody who fasted report back that they have mental clarity, that's because their body, their brain especially, the prefrontal cortex and the brain in general is preferred, which is the cognition station. The preferred source of fuel is ketones. And the only way you're going to get ketones is if you get into lipolysis and ultimately gluconeogenesis. So I know I said a lot of words. I'm not trying to be the scientist, okay? But I do want you to understand, because I think knowledge is power, but now execution, right, is where the real power lies. If knowledge might just be potential power, then execution is where the real power lies. So what I just did there was I broke down how carbs, sugars, through glycolysis, provide your body with rapid energy. And then through lipolysis, how when you are metabolically flexible, it only takes about 4 to 6 hours. Once your body's getting conditioned and you've suppressed ghrelin, that's the one you want to suppress, right? Remember ghrelin? What was ghrelin? It was the gremlin. It's what makes you hangry. So if you're constantly giving in to the gremlin, you're constantly going to be crazy when you want to eat, all right? But if you do that, then you're going to suppress the brain signals leptin, or you're suppress the hormone leptin that signals the brain that I'm full, and you're going to constantly be hungry. You're going to constantly eat. It's going to drive your behaviors, and then you're going to ultimately become obese over time because you're never getting into lipolysis where you're burning off the fat for fuel. You're just stacking fuel over and over and over. And now all of a sudden, I've got 50 pounds of excess fuel on me. And I've never learned that fat, that body fat, can be converted into glucose through a process called gluconeogenesis once you've reached the lipolysis stage in which fat is being used for fuel. Does this make sense to everybody? Do you guys understand what I'm talking about right now? This is called metabolic flexibility. This is how you stay lean and strong. Back to Jody's question. So you stay lean and strong and clear-headed full time, all right? Now, let me explain to you why I know this, why I know it to be true for my body. The science in general is going to apply in some way, shape, or form to human physiology because, and in psychology too, really, when it comes to the mental clarity part, ketosis, ketones, and beta oxidation to produce those. And this is how you're going to stay lean and strong while gaining muscle full time. Okay, let me tell you a story about what I do. And I'll tell you that this is more recent for me because I got to a place around Easter this last year where I looked at myself in the mirror and I was 19% body fat. I was 200 and almost 20 pounds, okay, and 20% body fat. And for a male, I was heavy. I was wearing baggy shirts because I'm supposed to be the fitness guy. I'm supposed to be the guy that like stays locked in full time. Guys, gals, I was not locked in for a really long time. For like almost since my daughter was born, 9 years, 10 years of just disregarding my health. Before that, I used to be very, very healthy. Kids came along, parents, and you know how it goes. You give an inch, then you take a mile psychologically. All of a sudden, like the frog in the pot of water that is slowly getting to a boiling point, it will just sit there and it will slowly boil itself to death because it never is too hot at any given time to where it jumps out. As opposed to you throw a frog in a pot of boiling water and that thing jumping out right away because it feels the pain. So I felt this slow, gradual pain of not being me, of really like being happy professionally because everybody around me was successful. Our franchise was one of the fastest growing fitness companies ever. Everybody's so impressed by it. I've got the entrepreneur's dream, the big business, doing business with who I love, where I love, women I love. I have an amazing wife and CEO and family, a leadership team, amazing employees at my HQ office, 100 of us that pour this shit in all day, every day. I have franchise partners who look up to me to be like the man, and a lot of this pressure was really, really getting to me. And so what I would do instead of like feeling my feelings or stepping up to myself and elevating my standards like I was asking everybody else to do, I would eat my kids' food. As soon as Grellin the Gremlin came up, I'm like, food, Chinese food, pizza, diet soda. I never drank diet soda. Ask Morgan. I walked into her college dorm room at Western Michigan University, and I found a 24-pack of Diet Coke at the time, and she was working for Kellogg's, and I found a pantry full of like free Pop-Tarts and cereal that she was getting, and I started throwing the stuff out even back then because I was so into my nutrition in college because I wanted to go play. I had a goal, I had a dream, and I knew that nutrition was one of the only ways that I was going to get there. So guys, I went from being like, and ask people at Burn. There was a time a franchise partner walked up the stairs in this very building with a McDonald's in their hand as I was passing them, and I politely, without saying a word, snatched that Big Mac and fries, kept walking down the stairs, and tossed both of them unapologetically, and I didn't care because that was the standard. Then I let my standards go slowly over time. I looked at myself in the mirror on Easter Sunday, and I just had puffy eyes, a miserable personal outlook. I felt like a fraud, like I was supposed to be doing something and people thought I was doing something, but I really wasn't doing it. I really wasn't practicing what I was preaching. I knew all the science. I could rip this stuff 10 years ago, what I'm talking to you about now, but I never did because I truly lived by my core values, and authenticity wasn't going to be there. And you would have picked up on it too. Because if I'm truly metabolically flexible and healthy, and I'm transferring my metabolic systems from glycolysis to lipolysis, it shows. I don't do it because I want to lose weight or body fat. I do it because I was miserable personally. I was drowning out my feelings. Like, I just wanted to feel again. I wasn't feeling anything. Whether it was food or alcohol or partying with my friends or whatever it was, I was doing far too much of that and drowning away all feelings. It was disassociating me from my emotional intelligence with the people that I love in my life the most, especially Morgan. And I looked at myself like, dude, you've got to do something about this. Look at you. Your standards are going down daily, not up. We preach championship culture here at Burn Boot Camp, and everything that I touch should have that emotional signature on it. And right now, I don't feel worthy. I need to do something. Guys, I was miserable. Okay? So what I did was radical. And I don't want you to do this. If you want to consider it, you can DM me, Devan.Kline. I am a fitness-specific nutritionist. I am working on my CNC. I do know my stuff when it comes to nutrition, and I can spit it with most nutritional scientists, biologists, physiologists out there. All right? I don't proclaim to be that, but I learn from them. I listen all the time. I'm a lifelong learner. And I wasn't practicing what I was preaching. So I made a change. In 37 years, I've never gone a day without eating food. And I'm sitting with Morgan at church with my family, and the priest said, and they fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. And I heard that because what I really realized is it wasn't that I was miserable only because I kept breaking promises to myself and not telling anybody. I was miserable because I was spiritually poor. And so when I heard him say that, for whatever reason, that's the one thing I picked up on, and there was such a sense of positivity. In every religion, you can find this sense of fasting in a positive sense, and it's a prescription in most religions. And I started thinking about, why is that? Oh, I get it. because you are in a controlled fashion. You're not starving yourself like a lot of people think about fasting, because starving yourself means you don't know when your next meal is going to come. Fasting is controlled starvation. Not only am I getting rid of my wants, my grilling the gremlins wants of constantly eating because it feels good, so I can drown out the feelings so I don't have to feel anything. I can just sit here and mindlessly stuff my face in front of this baseball game or basketball game or Real Housewives show and not even think secondly about what I'm eating, not being in tune with my food, not giving grace and respect to the food and the process that got me here, but rather just being a glutton. I knew that I needed something radical. This is my mindset. I'm a very much all in or all out person, and I was spiritually broken, and what I needed to do was fast for 7 days. Because not only do my wants get met, which means I don't have discipline, my needs will be deprived of as well. I need food. It's a fundamental human need, but not more fundamental than the need for self-actualization. Look up Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Food, safety, shelter is low. Self-actualization is high. So I was willing to deprive myself of the need of food so that I could find out who I really am and self-actualize. So 7 days, no food, only water, this replenish electrolyte right here, Burn Bootcamp, Burn Nutrition, electrolyte, and black coffee with nothing in it. The second day, I had 1 5-hour energy because the second day was very hard. Hardest thing I've ever done in my life, probably. But by the third day, this 24-hour, 48-hour rule that I'm talking about during lipolysis, your body will start to get into deep lipolysis and start converting fat, okay? And what was happening with me was that by day 3, I began to get clarity. It's the first time in a long time, it's the first time ever that I didn't eat, that I didn't drink, that I didn't do anything bad for my body that my body does not want to accept. The first time ever I've done that for 3 days. My body said, thank you. I was so clear. Waves of hunger came, and I knew the hormonal cycle. I looked at gremlin in the eyes, and I said, not today, buddy. And I allowed leptin, okay, lucky leptin. I allowed lucky leptin to show its face, and I said, brain, I feel the lipolysis happening. I feel my triglycerides, the glycerol backbone being broken. I feel that glycerol converting into glucose. I feel those free fatty acids. I feel them being shipped off by albumin down into my liver. And I feel beta oxidation. I feel that ketone going up to my brain. I feel euphoric on day 3. Day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7 continues the same exact process. By day 7, I was me again. It was my spiritual reset. All of that toxic body fat, all of the emotional distress, the dormant feelings that I pushed down, right? I now know that body fat is not only stored calories, but it's stored energy, and it's stored negative energy. It's not positive energy. Your body doesn't want to hold excess body fat. It only wants to hold enough to know that we can get to the next meal. That's it. That's the amount of fat reserve you need. That's why it's not healthy to be at 0% body fat. We need to be anywhere, males from 5% to 12% to be metabolically healthy, generally speaking. And for women, anywhere from, that north of 10% mark, even all the way up to like 18, maybe even 19% for some body types, all right? That's not a That's not the Bible. I'm just giving you a general range of where you might need to be just to be metabolically healthy. Now, I'm not talking about metabolic flexibility, because if you're metabolically flexible, your body fat will be optimized. You will only store enough body fat to which you can get to your next meal, and that will take you to the lower end of the range that I'm talking about. And guess what? You never have to deprive yourself, because your body fat is calories. You are eating, you are converting that food, that stored fat, back into energy so that your body can use it. Do you follow me on this one? Are you guys following me? Okay. So then I'll just finish my story. So then for the next 7 days, because I was feeling so good and job was not finished, then I went to an intermittent fasting schedule where I had a high protein diet, a high fat diet, all good, high, clean fats, proteins. I basically saute my carbs are like sweet potatoes and vegetables, and I basically saute my sweet potatoes and my vegetables in avocado oil. That's my favorite flavor, high smoke point. And then I'm gonna have high clean protein, diversified sources. Elk, venison, beef, chicken, salmon, eggs. Whey protein shakes is about the full gamut for me. I did some octopus in there and some I like to try radical proteins just to see how they feel. But then also good, clean, high fat, okay? Eating whole eggs, nut butters, just 100% almond butter is my absolute favorite go-to. And through that high protein, high fat, low to moderate carbohydrate, clean, simple carbohydrate diet, and that intermittent fasting window, what I did to my body for the next 7 days is then I was in ketosis full time. I was measuring my ketones with ketosis strips. And I've had a really negative taste in my mouth about the keto diet for a long time, just because people that do that, they don't take the time to understand what you're being explained to right now. They'll just go out and eat cheese and call it a day, and that's not healthy at all, or anything processed. I don't eat anything processed during this period, and now that I'm 24 days in, down 30 pounds, went from 220, all right, almost 40, 220, I'm now 180. Okay, I'm 180 pounds today. I'm 6.5% body fat, down from almost 20% body fat. And this has all happened just in 23 days. And I'll tell you anecdotally, I'm the best I've ever felt. I'm back. Let's go. You can see it on my Instagram. This is the person that I'm meant to be. It wasn't that guy hiding behind all those dormant body fat that holds that emotional signature that's down on the negative scope of the map of consciousness, that lives in shame and doubt and fear and drowns himself in bad food and too much alcohol and too much partying just to not feel like all of that is released. I feel so good. And now my full-time schedule, again, my full-time schedule, Jody, not yours. You should not do this. People listening, this is your disclaimer, okay? I'm not prescribing you anything. You should not listen to me outside of hearing my anecdotal story, and maybe it provokes some curiosity in you to do something maybe similar and to consider it. I need you to DM me on Instagram, and I will answer you, and I will talk with you one-on-one, and I will help you probably start at quality calories in, calories out with the intermittent fasting window while you sleep, so that you're getting consistent fuel every day and that you're able to take advantage of metabolic flexibility from glycolysis to lipolysis, okay? So this is very important for me to continue to say that and to harp on that, because I do not want you running out and doing what I'm doing. But here is the full-time game plan for yours truly. And this is probably the most advanced that you're going to get. And this is just who I am now, and it's my discipline, and it's who I'm meant to be. So there's 3 types of days for me. There's strength training days or hypertrophy days. There's conditioning days. All right, so anabolic, anaerobic. Those are the 2 main energy systems of the body at the highest level. So one's conditioning, one's strength. We got 3 of those each in the 6 workouts at Burn. So I'm going to Burn Monday through Saturday, Monday through Friday at noon, Saturday in the morning. When I have a strength day, I'm feeding all day long. Quality calories in, quality calories out. When I am on conditioning days, it's a 24-hour fast. My body is switching back and forth from the two energy systems. That means metabolic flexibility. On the days that I'm on off day or the Metcon days, the metabolic conditioning days, I'm intermittent fasting with my 2-hour window. I have about 100 grams of protein in the first 30 minutes and then about 100 grams of protein in the back 30 minutes. And I've actually done a podcast where I explain kind of all of, kind of the recommended range for you in terms of how much you should be eating. And it's if you're interested in this type of metabolic flexibility. So on feeding days, I'm 180 pounds. All right. So I'm going to eat for my ideal body weight, not your body weight. You've heard you should have X amount of protein per body pound. No. X amount of protein per ideal body pound. Okay. So I want to be 185. So I'm going to eat 185 grams of protein. That's about like 700, doing the rough math because there's 4 calories per gram. It's like just over 720. That's roughly like 30% or so. And then I have from fat about 40%. That's over 110 or 120 grams because there's 9 calories per gram in fat. And then carbohydrates, let's see, I'm at like 30%. So that's like about 800 calories. So that's 190 grams from carbohydrate, all clean. So I'm like 2,500 calories roughly a day, which puts me, based on my total daily energy expenditure, at about a 300 calorie deficit. But through lipolysis, remember, it's not that you eat dietary protein to gain muscle. That's true. That's part of it, right? Second to mechanical load and tension. How you really gain muscle is exercise, strength training, hypertrophy, then dietary protein. But all of that, including the hormone GH and insulin-like growth factor 1 or IGF-1, and sleep and recovery and maximizing deep sleep GH and all these different systems of the body, testosterone spikes when you do get into hypertrophy or metabolic conditioning, all those underlying mechanisms actually fuel what's called MPS, muscle protein synthesis. And muscle protein synthesis is how you build muscle, right? Dietary protein just provides the amino acids, right, to really drive your MPS. But when you're in lipolysis, through, remember that big fancy term, gluconeogenesis? That's the act of taking your fat, breaking that triglyceride bond, the glycerol, the backbone, converts into glucose. Glucose fuels muscle protein synthesis. Now, people often worry. So this is a big deal. I want you to really listen to your ears because people often worry about losing muscle while they're fasting. Let me tell you why this is a myth. This is a myth for the following reason. You do not lose muscle when you fast if you're listening to what I'm saying during this whole podcast and you're putting it all together and you're not doing like the uneducated version of keto diet where you just eat whatever you want as long as it's not really high carbohydrate, or you're not doing quality calories in, you're not doing CICO, calories in, calories out, where a calorie is the same no matter whether it's broccoli or ice cream, because you understand that each one of those foods carries a hormonal benefit. Okay, insulin is a hormone, and the glycemic index, all right, you've heard of that before, will tell you that broccoli doesn't spike insulin as much as ice cream or simple carb, right? That the complex carbs don't. And so here's what you need to know, that your muscle is 76% water, okay? 76% water. You don't lose muscle on a fast. You're gonna lose water on a fast. Now, you can fast for far too long, and you definitely can go into a muscular catabolic state, which takes a very long time. But if you have body fat, the preferred energy source for the body is body fat. Right after that sugar, that rapid sugar that we need, okay, that comes from our food, the next preferred source in this hierarchy is Lipolysis, okay, it is conversion of triglyceride, glycerol, glucose back into muscle protein synthesis. You're going to maintain your muscle no matter what, as long as you're doing it the right way. And the right way is to have mechanical tension, hypertrophy, even when you're on a fast, because you are giving your body glucose to fuel muscle protein synthesis still. So not a lot of people understand this. They're not willing to go deep enough to know that glycogen, like the glycogen stores in your body are hydrophilic. Meaning that when it bonds to water, so about 1 gram of glycogen is at 3 or 4 grams of H2O. And if muscle is 76% water, yes, you're going to look flatter if you do decide to ever, fast, or even when you start intermittent fasting, that kind of overnight, everyday routine that I believe, generally speaking, most people should heavily consider looking into that. You're going to look a little bit flatter if you don't lift. But yeah, maybe a little flatter, but no, you're not going to lose muscle, okay? Because all you're doing is just dropping the content of H2O intracellular in your muscle, okay? And then what happens? You can go out and you can even find peer-revised, third-party medical journals published in JAMA, published in international sports medicine and different peer-revised, you can find this in randomized control trials. The measurement mechanisms, the electrodes, the electricity that they measure you with, reads hydration. Our in-bodies that we have at Burn Boot Camp reads hydration. So of course, if it's reading hydration and your glycogen is hydrophilic and it takes the H2O molecules with it, so you're depleting this water, you're going to drop an intracellular muscle, the electricity is going to read different. And it's going to act like you lost muscle when you really didn't. So the measurement tools are off, okay? All right, I think that's pretty good. Let me do one more thing for you. Let me talk about muscle protein synthesis a little bit more. And let me just kind of give you like a hierarchy of muscle protein synthesis, because I've said a lot during this Ask Devan Anything. I've said it's not dietary protein that necessarily builds muscle. Like people say, just eat protein, build muscle. Well, eat protein and then don't lift and watch how much muscle you build. You might maintain what you have at the very least, at the very most, if you're not applying mechanical load, mechanical tension. So what we're going to talk about is muscle protein synthesis. I'm going to teach you right now in and out of metabolic flexibility, okay, in and out of burning sugars for fuel and fat for fuel, carbohydrates for fuel and fat for fuel. I'm going to talk about a hierarchy, okay, and I've already touched on it a little bit. I just want to round this conversation out, and then I'm going to get you guys out of here 2 claps on 2 like we always do. So number 1 is mechanical load and tension. mTOR1. This activates these muscle sensors or mechanosensors, I believe that they're called, in the muscle fiber. And when we do activate these mechanosensors, what we're doing is we are generating, signaling MPS or muscle protein synthesis. So will you optimize your protein, your muscle building? If you don't optimize your protein, you will not optimize it. But if you lift, you will gain muscle. It might not be the most amount of muscle that you could potentially gain because you're not optimizing an environment for muscle protein synthesis, but you're going to gain it because mechanical load and tension signals to the body, to these mechanosensors that live in the fibers, we got to grow because this external stress is going to come again and we got to get stronger. All right. Okay, so then number 2, let's go to dietary protein. But I want to go, because it is very important, right? But what is important about it? It's the amino acid profile, specifically the complete amino acid profile versus the non-complete. I'm not going to go into the full depth of that right now, but I'm going to touch on one thing, which is leucine. The magic muscle building protein is amino acid from protein is called leucine. Imagine that amino acids are like little construction workers and they're building the most optimized muscle possible. The leucine is the general contractor. It's the GM. It's the one that's going to put all of that work together. It's going to be the thing that you need to make that house stand up. That is your muscle. It's going to be necessary to have an adequate amount of leucine protein in Burn Bootcamp nutrition products. Anything that you have that's a protein whey protein product, our Afterburn bars, our Afterburn whey protein, all right, is a complete amino acid profile. And I highly recommend that you get in a habit of at least 2 scoops of clean. I'm just going to say Afterburn because I know exactly what's in it. I'm there when we manufacture it. We designed, nutritionally engineered the product ourselves with real nutritional scientists, not the armchair nutrition scientists that you see in front of you today. But I do recommend plant protein, but not for complete protein, okay? Let's just be honest. It's not going to give you the same punch as a whey protein. Will you still gain muscle? Of course. You will gain muscle if you didn't have a lot of protein in your diet because of your mechanical tension. Are you going to optimize it with plant protein? No, because it's absent in leucine. You'll optimize with whey protein with the complete amino acid profile. But I drink both forms and eat both forms of protein, both plant, generally speaking, and whey as the 2 main sources. And I take plant in mostly for the phytochemicals and micronutrients that are a part of it. So just giving you a little bit on dietary protein and how, yeah, it is part of it, but it's also not the end-all, be-all like everybody else. And I mentioned earlier, it's not just about calories. I hope women, you guys out there, especially you guys, know that metabolic flexibility will optimize your hormones. If you got thyroid problems, if you got any underlying hormonal ailments, 99 times out of 100, not every single human, but 99 times out of 100, fix your hormonal environment, fix your caloric efficiency, quality calories in, calories out, proper feeding times, proper fasting times, most notably overnight. And then and if you do this well, why this really matters is then you're going to never run into insulin resistance, this constant spike of insulin, because that hormone ghrelin is saying, feed me, feed me, feed me, feed me, feed me. All right. And then when you become insulin resistant, the testosterone, the growth hormone or GH that gets secreted from the pituitary gland, most notably the anterior pituitary gland, then that pathology of growth hormone being carried to the liver and spiking insulin-like growth factor, IGF-1, in the liver, right, which is really like the go-doer of muscle protein synthesis. It's like the powerhouse of the mitochondria. It's going to go get that cell in shape for you real quick. So that's the 3rd in the hierarchy. Number 4, lipolysis, gluconeogenesis, fat to fuel, glycerol, glucose, right? Fatty acids, right? The whole 9 yards. That lipolysis is number 4. That is really important because that is going to provide you with a hormonal environment as well. When you're in gluconeogenesis, your GH is spiked way up, okay? And so what's going to happen is that's going to provide more of an environment. Number 5 would be deep sleep. It would be specifically that deep cycle of sleep, that REM sleep where the GH is this is where GH, growth hormone, is released most from the anterior pituitary gland. The most, okay? And it's during those few hours when you're in deep sleep. Morgan and I wear Oura. I used to be the guy who didn't want to wear Oura or Whoop or Apple Watch because I was just not wanting to feel the feelings of me knowing that I was eating like a horrible, metabolically sick person. And I didn't want to look at my stats. So I was just like, I don't want to look at I don't need to look at my stats. I know my body and I'd like lie to myself. I am obsessed with this thing now because I know what happens. And when you're educated and if you can get into deep sleep, I'm going to release GH. GH, you don't need to know anything other than it releases the powerhouse behind MPS or muscle protein synthesis through a hormone called insulin-like growth factor 1, IGF-1. which is responsible for like muscle repair as well as glucose uptake. So, and then the very last one is timing. It's just timing. Listen, the anabolic window, you've heard that before. Hey, you have a window after your workout. I was very guilty of that in my prior life as well. And this isn't necessarily true. There's a study that I want to point you to. Maybe we can link this in the show notes, you guys. There's a study. It's called The Effect of Protein Timing on Muscle Strength and Hypertrophy. A meta-analysis is what it's called. The authors are, I know one of them is Krieger. I forgot the other one. Schoenfield, and there's like one other. I think there's 3 of them. But it was published in the Journal of International Society of Sports Medicine. And this is important, right? Because it was a human randomized control trial. Like, here's my criteria for what I listen to, what I don't listen to, what I read, what I don't read. I'm totally like a nutrition and fitness and exercise science and psychology nerd and corrective exercise nerd. And so I'm constantly reading these things, and half of them are BS. You want to look for human randomized control trials. You also want to look for third-party, peer-revised medical journals, which this is the Journal of International Society of Sports Medicine is that, okay? And so I just want you to know that like timing is not that important. They said in this study that after a deep review, and you can go read it yourself, after a deep review, it is statistically insignificant, this anabolic window. And if you're somebody who might be like a bodybuilder and you do this professionally, that statistical insignificance might be the one edge that wins you the championship over the next guy or gal. But outside of that, I don't want anyone really paying attention to anabolic window. If you can, and it's easy, and it fits your lifestyle, sure, go ahead, do it. It does show like something, but like don't hang your hat on it because it's really not that important, okay? All right, Jody. So I'm not sure if you asked for all that necessarily, but I hope I gave you a well-rounded snapshot, and those of you listening, to the answer of the question here on Ask Devan Anything of, is it possible to build muscle and burn fat simultaneously? Here's the summary, and then you can keep re-listening and re-listening and re-listening to the podcast so that you really get it dialed in. You can take notes, you can draw charts, you can follow me along. But the answer to your question, is it possible to build muscle and burn fat simultaneously? The answer is yes. The answer to, is it possible to optimize muscle and optimize fat simultaneously is no. Here's the difference. When I am building muscle slowly, burning fat consistently and simultaneously, I will be metabolically flexible, which is primo health. When I am in cutting and bulking cycles, traditionally, I might maximize that muscle in that bulking cycle because I'm feeding my body. So I'm constantly in this state of glycolysis. I'm constantly in this state of putting sugars in I never want to go 2 hours without eating. You become so metabolically sick that you don't have any flexibility, especially if you're constantly eating. A lot of bodybuilders get this, and then generally speaking, if you are somebody who does do an intermittent fasting overnight, you could be metabolically healthy, but are you going to be metabolically primed and flexible? You are not. So it is my recommendation and my recommendation to myself, because I know that I want to be lean, athletic. I want to be able to run a mile in 5 minutes and 30 seconds. I want to be able to bench press 225 15 to 20 times. I want to be able to do 20 pull-ups in a row, deadlift my body weight for 25 reps. I want to be an athlete, pass the Burn Bootcamp strength and conditioning assessment in 15 minutes or less. I want to be able to be strong, athletic, mobile, and metabolic flexibility, most importantly, will promote longevity and decrease your biological age over time. So your decision is your decision. Do you want to maximize to look good a couple days a year, 6 months out of the year, and maybe not feel great? Or do you want to stay looking great all the time, be metabolically flexible, and create health in your body? All right, I'm going to leave you with a little carrot, a little hanging for next time. The next time we do an Ask Devan Anything, we are gonna we have a question that goes a little bit deeper on this, and we are gonna go deeper on this, okay? And we're gonna go into what fasting actually does to the body beyond just what I'm discussing here: fat for fuel, sugar for fuel, and getting to underlying mechanisms that are about health and longevity. Okay? Longevity is the name of the game. Words like autophagy, mitophagy, stem cell regeneration. All right, these terms are coming at you, and it's going to give you something else to think about and something else to consider when you're thinking about the hormonal effects of food, the caloric effects of food, and you can't have a conversation one without the other. That's it for today, everybody. Please go give me a review. I want to know what you thought about this podcast. The good, the bad, the ugly, the agreements, the disagreements. I'm here to start a conversation. I'm here to provoke curiosity in you. And I'm here to be here as your guide for training, eating, and thinking differently. 2 claps on 2. 1, 2.